How I made Minecraft's best 3D texture pack. This is not a tutorial on how to make a texture pack. There are plenty of videos out there on how to do that, and you can also just download a texture pack and look at the code and see how they do it. I'm going to tell you a whole bunch of little problems that I ran into while making the texture pack and how to fix them. Deleting unused faces. You need to be deleting the textures that you never see. Hiding all of the cubes except for the rings of the barrel. I textured this one. You click on this face and you go remove face. Deleting a face that you never use, it means when you export, it won't even write the code for that face. It means you're not trying to render a whole bunch of things that you're never gonna see. There's no point of wasting your resources on that. Deleting unused faces, I have seen in really complicated models, it delete up to 23 kilobytes of data, which can add 1 to 2 FPS, which is insane. It's just by deleting a few faces off of your model, you can gain FPS. Another thing that goes along with that is culling faces. Cull facing is when you tell a side of a block to not render when a block is touching it. In Blockbench, you can click on this face. This is the north face, and you can see by the arrow, this is facing to the north, and we are wanting to cull it when a block to the north is touching it. That's also a way to save performance. A trick to save you a whole bunch of time, instead of going into options and then resource packs and then deselecting the pack and reselecting the pack to reload it, you can just do F3 and T and it reloads the pack. How you design your model and cull facing go along with each other. The top of the grass block, its face is being culled because there is a block on top of it. And because the block on top is smaller, you can actually see through the world. And you don't want that when making a texture pack. So when you're making a model, you have to have cull facing in mind because you don't want situations like this. That's why the hay actually has the hay going outwards into the block next to it and not the straps going inwards, because if the straps were inwards and a block was right here, you would actually be able to see inside of the block. There's also some weird stuff that happens with slabs with certain blocks, so you just want to watch out with that. All of these faces of this hay block are culled when there's a block next to it, or else we would see Z-planing in these pixels right here. An example of Z-planing being this right here. Two textures are trying to share the same space and it just doesn't work out. You can see right here, this pixel and this pixel are actually just slightly away from each other to not have Z-planing. Tint index. If you look in the textures, grasses, ferns, redstone, water, they're all gray. When you export it and put it in the world, it's gray. And you're like, well, how is it gray when the game renders it as green? That's with tint index. So you can select all your faces, hit tint, and then it will add tint index to all those faces. Now in Blockbench, there's a cool little plugin called Tint Preview that allows you to see what it actually looks like. This is what redstone looks like with power level 0 versus no tint. Check the texture file path. If you put textures in your pack, how default Minecraft is set up, you don't need a whole bunch of extra stuff. It automatically looks into textures. It's telling it look into block, and then this is the file. Sometimes when you export it, it adds a whole bunch of stuff and it comes up with pink and black unknown texture, and you're like, what the heck happened? Just check right here and make sure it's referencing the right place. Check your particle texture. You should have a particle texture for all of your blocks and even some of your items. If the texture in the particle section of your model is wrong, it's calling to a wrong place, or the file doesn't exist, your particle, when you break it, will be pink and black. It's also a way of changing the particle texture to something different than the item itself. So like in mushroom stew, if you don't want to eat the bowl, you can make a texture of just the soup itself and call up that texture instead of just the mushroom stew, which has the brown of the bowl and the soup in the particle texture. If you zoom in on the crafting table, the 3D additions around the edges are white. when it gets towards out of render distance, but when you come back closer, it goes back to the right texture. So why would it be white? Those 3D pieces of the crafting table call to a different texture. For some reason, don't ask me why, if all of the texture that's not even being called up by the block is white, when you go really far away, the texture turns to that white. But if you leave it all transparent like this, you don't have that problem. Textures need to be in 16 by 16 multiples. So you can do 8 by 8, 16 by 16, 32 by 32, etc. But you do not want to do 17 by 17. That doesn't work. This sword currently is a 17 by 17, and it is just all glitchy and not working. On items, for the longest time, they have like this little line that you can see through the item. You can see on the dark parts of the sword at the edge of the screen really well. That's a kind of annoying thing that's existed for a long time in Minecraft and might be getting fixed very soon. A way to fix that is to actually make a model for the item instead of just slapping a texture in and then the game making it 1 pixel wide. Another thing with items and textures, if you jump into the display in GUI, by default, Blockbench sets all things to side light, and they look really dark. So if your item in a texture pack looks really dark and out of place, it's because it's using side light. You just need to set that to front light and it will brighten up. Why we have side light is because that's what blocks actually use. Diagonal blocks have dark vertical lines in them. I haven't fully figured this one out. I just know a workaround. On the 2D blocks, they don't have this problem, but as soon as you go to 3D, I find this problem so where like this line right here is darker than the rest. Like that's also a dark line. And you can see on here, this is dark, but then these two faces aren't. And for some reason that happens when it's on a 45, but as soon as you go to 90, it gets rid of those dark lines in them. That's why the dripstone and all of the plants are actually on 90s instead of 45s, is to get rid of those dark lines. And it also matches up with the pixels of the blocks better. But if someone knows how to get rid of those dark lines, leave it in the comments below. If Optifine's a requirement for your pack, Optifine has a few connected textures in it, like glass, but it also has bookshelves in it. And so in my case, when I have custom bookshelf models, the problem when it's trying to connect all the bookshelves together, it tries putting dark spots all in here when the shelves are sticking out there and it looks super ugly. All you have to do is copy the bookshelf texture into your pack and it overrides Optifine's bookshelf CTM. The base game, when it's displaying a plant, it does it in 2 planes. And those planes, it's not mirrored on each side. It is facing the same direction, whatever way you are facing it. And so when you turn it, you're always seeing the texture from the same side. But with 3D, you can't do that. What might be the right direction on one side is actually going to be mirrored on the opposite side. What happens, these 2 sides are the exact same, and these 2 sides are the exact same. If you're looking at one of these 2 directions, everything is perfectly symmetrical and weird and not natural whatsoever. I coded it when the plants are placed in that they have a 25% chance of being in their different orientations. This keeps it a lot more natural. There might be a situation where you want to change just one cube in the model and not re-export it and mess up a whole bunch of your texture pathing or something that you did. The way of finding it is you go, oh, I need to find this cube. Well, it's going to be the 3rd one down in your .json file. The CEM template loader is how I make the entity models that require Optifine. The parrot's left leg is actually its right leg, so just keep that in mind. If you're messing with the chiseled bookshelf and your texture starts doing this direction is fine, but then that direction it's not, that's UV lock. In block states, it has this UV lock true, just delete that. This is what you want it to look like. When they added glow lichen to the game, they changed how vines glow lichen and then eventually how skulk works, is that when you have all these different variants of like the side or the top or the 3 or 2 across from each other, they change how the code works. It just places the model on whatever other plane it wants it to be on. 1.16 was the last update that it did it, that it actually had a separate model for each of these different states. With 2D models, it's so much easier with the new version. But with 3D models, if you don't have an individual model for every state, when it butts these two models up against each other, these two pixels are going to be z-planing with each other. So to make the vines, to make the glow lichen, to make the skulk, I had to make a model for every single option possible, and then you have to rewrite the entire block state file for that block. So in essence, what I did is the vine code, the glow lichen code, and the skulk code is just modified versions of the vine code from 1.16, and it overwrites all of the modern code. That's how you get rid of z-planing with vines. And it's a detail that most people, when they're modeling vines, might completely overlook. And I don't blame them. It's a lot of freaking work to go into just to get rid of a few z-planes. If you guys are making texture packs, you might make data packs in the future. And a little tip with that is that if you're trying to change a recipe in the game that already exists, you have to put it in the same Minecraft location, or else it just doesn't work. If you're making something completely new, that can be in whatever heck folder you want. Let's say you're changing a crafting recipe, it has to be in the recipe folder. So if you're a texture pack maker, I hope there is some tip in here that can help you make your pack. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.